We continue now at the top of Daf 100b in Mesechet Kesuvos. This is Kesuvos Daf 100b. On the previous Amud, the Gemara said that let's say a sale is made by an almana or a bezdin, and it's the Yisomim's property, so to provide the guarantee. And the Gemara said that if the almana sells, let's say for a ksuba, so it's obvious the Yisomim provide the guarantee because it's really their property. This is the property of their late father. But when the bezdin sells, that's already a chiddush. Why? Because kol dezavin mi beidino adaita lemepik lekolahu dezavin. Because anyone who buys from a bezdin, so the idea is that you think there's going to be a proclamation, a pronouncement from the bezdin, and therefore you might think that there is no such guarantee. Kamash Malon, no, that the Yisomim, they have to provide that guarantee in case the property gets taken away. Rashi says, "Kol dezavin mi beidina adaita denafik lekol zavin lefi shein mochrim behachroza." Because when bezdin sells, they always make a proclamation. They make an announcement. Uvatuach halokeach shilu hayu ala asik and hayu yotzin umarin. And the lokeach knows that if there was anyone to protest to take this land away from him, they would have come already. They would have heard the proclamation. Hilkach shelo b'achrayis lokeach. Therefore, you might think he's buying without any guarantee. So kamash malan, that's what the chiddush is. The chiddush is no, the Yisomim do provide a guarantee even in such a situation. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel Omer v'chulu. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says that when the court sells somebody's property, let's say the property of Yisomim or something along those lines, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says since the court is selling, the court has power, and even if they make a mistake by more than a sixth, the sale is still going to be valid. The Gemara says viad kama. So until what? How much of a mistake can the court make that we still say it's valid? Amar Rav Huna bar Yehuda, Amar Rav Sheshas, Ad Palga. Rav Huna bar Yehuda says that Rav Sheshas says even until half the value of the property, even if they make a mistake, that's at the amount of half the value of the property, that will still be valid. If it's more than a half already, that's going to be not valid. Tanya Nami Hach, we have a brisa that says this as well. Amar Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says Bezin Shamachru Shavim Masayim b'mana. Let's say Bezin sells something worth 200 for 100, or Shavim Mana b'Masayim, or the opposite, it's worth 100, they sell it for 200. Mechron Kayim, that is going to be a good sale. You see that it's up to half of the value. Amar Ameimar Mishmei Rav Yosef. Ameimar says in the name of Rav Yosef, Bezin shemachru below hachraza. Let's say Bezin sells something, but they don't make any announcement. Nasu kamishato bidvar mishnah v'chozrin. It is as if they made a mistake in something that's a mishnah, and that sale has to be retracted. It is obvious that Bezin must sell with a hachraza. They have to sell with an announcement. Rashi over here says v'chozrin ve'inomen masha asa asui v'yashala mi beiso ela hadri zvini. We don't say that the sale is a good sale. No, rather we say that everything has to be retracted. Again, this is similar to To Bidvar Mishnah. So the Gemara says Nasu. It's as if it's in a Mishnah. Vaday to. No, it isn't a Mishnah. This is certainly a mistake of something written in a Mishnah. The Tanan, because we learned in a Mishnah. Shum hayisomin shloshim yom. If you have something that's evaluated on behalf of the orphans, so then you have to announce it for 30 days. V'shum hahektish. Let's say you're selling something that belongs to hektish. Shishim yom. You have to publicize it. You have to announce that for 60 days. Umachrizin baboker u'va'erev. And you make the announcements in the morning and in the evening. And so here you see clearly, you have a situation where the Bezdin is selling, and it says that you have to have achraza. That's what the Mishnah says. But the Gemara says, no, if you're only looking at that Mishnah, it doesn't say who's doing the sale. It says there's a sale going on, there's an evaluation going on, let's say it's a gizbor, some kind of caretaker, maybe that's only by a shliach. Aval bezdin lo, but maybe by a bezdin, I would say that's not the case. Maybe they don't have to make a hachraza. So kamash malan, so that's the chiddush over here in the name of Rav Yosef, that if bezdin tries to sell something without a hachraza, also it's the same idea. It's as if they were told bidvar mishnah, and the sale is going to be retracted. Eisvei Ravashi li Ameimar. Ravashi asks Ameimar the following question. Shum hadayonin shepichso shasus or hosiru shasus mechron batel. So it says again, if you have an evaluation by the court and it's less by a sixth, it's a mistake, off by a sixth in either direction, less by a sixth, more by a sixth, so then we say it's nullified, it's not a good sale. Hashave b'shave mechron kayim, but it says if it was a sale for the right amount of money, the sale by the court would be a good sale. My lav de lo achras. And isn't it talking about a situation where they didn't make a public announcement over here? They didn't make a proclamation, and you see that they can sell without a proclamation. And the Gemara says simply, lo, no. B'da'achras, the case is also, of course, they have to make this proclamation. But the Gemara says, one second, Hamid the Seifa b'da achras have it, Reisha b'da lo achras. But the end of the Mishnah talks about what happens when there's an announcement made. Doesn't that imply that the beginning is talking without an announcement? The Katani Seifa, because what does it say in the Seifa? It says, Imasu igeris bakoris, if they make like a letter of proclamation, they put it on the market, so to speak. So afilu machra shavim manav masayim, even if they sell, it's worth 100, they sell for 200. Oshava masayim b'manar, let's say they sell, it's worth 200, they do it for 100. Mechron kayim. So in those situations, it is going to be a good sale. So the whole point of the end of the Mishnah is when you make like this announcement, this public announcement, and people bid on the property, so then you're really getting market value for the property. So then it's always going to be good, even if it's shavim manav masayim or shavim masayim b'mana. And that would apply that the earlier part of the Mishnah is talking about without a proclamation, without a public announcement. And so the Gemara says, Elul yolam b'delo achras. Really, you're right. The case over there was in the beginning of the Mishnah, they did not make an announcement. And there's a distinction that the Mishnah is actually talking about different kinds of items. For location, it's not difficult. Kan b'dvarim shemachrizin aleim. Here we're talking about things which you generally do make announcements about. Kan b'dvarim shein machrizin aleim. And over here, in the beginning of the Mishnah, there are certain items that you just don't announce publicly that you're selling them. The following items we don't generally announce when we're selling them. If you have avodim, if you have movable objects, or let's say you have documents, those things you don't announce. What's the reason? Avodim taimamai. What's the reason we don't announce that we're selling avodim? Shema yishmu v'yivrachu. They already were afraid maybe they're going to hear us making the announcement and they're going to run away, so it wouldn't be a good idea to make that announcement. And metaltal and ushtaras, and also let's say you're selling movable objects or documents, so then also if you're going to make that announcement, shema yignevu, then we're afraid they might get stolen. People are going to be aware of the existence of these properties and they're going to try to steal. That, of course, is not going to happen with something like land. V'ba yasem, if you want, I could say another answer. Kan b'shosha machrizin, kan b'shosha in machrizin. Again, there are times, sometimes in here, we're talking about times when an announcement is made. That's the end of the Mishnah. But the earlier part of the Mishnah is talking about time situations where we don't make announcements. What kind of situations? The Amri Nahardoi, because Nahardoi said, l'chargo l'mizoni l'vilikvura. Let's say you're selling land in order to pay the tax, in order to get mizonos, sustenance, let's say for the widow, or let's say for burial purposes. So in those situations, you need to get the money right away. We cannot wait for a formal proclamation, announcement process. So mizavninon below achrast. In those situations, you would actually sell without making that announcement. And the Gemara says another answer, V'ba Yisayim, if you want, I could say another answer, Kan b'makom shemachrizin, kan b'makom she'in machrizin. Here we're talking about an area, a locale, where they make announcements, and in the beginning of the Mishnah, we're talking about a locale where they do not make announcements. It's the Amar Rav Nachman, because Rav Nachman said, Me'olam lo asu igeres bakoros b'nahardoi. They never would make this kind of announcement in Nahardoi. Nahardoi was a place where this was not done. And the Gemara continues, Savar mina mishum debiki b'shuma. They thought that the reason why they don't make announcements in Nahardoi is because they're already experts at evaluating the worth of the land. They don't need such announcements. They don't need to put it on the market in that fashion. Amar le Rav Yosef bar Menyume, but Rav Yosef bar Menyume said to him, no, that's not the reason. L'didim efarshali mine de Rav Nachman. To me, it was explained in the name of Rav Nachman. The real reason is as follows: Mishum dekari luhu b'nei achli nichsei dachrasta, because it was looked down upon. People would call if you would make an announcement selling the Yisomim's property. So people would say, oh, these are the people who are selling the property through an announcement. Meaning it looked as though to the people of Nahardoi, it looked as though you were taking advantage when you sold this kind of property, and they would actually stay away if an announcement was made like that, and so therefore they decided in Nahardoi that they would sell without these proclamations. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says that Shmuel says, Metaltalin shall Yisomim, when you have the movable property of Yisomim, Shamin Osan, Umorchen Osan La'alter. You have to evaluate them, and you have to sell them immediately. Rav Chisda Amar, Rav Chisda says, Rav Chisda Amar Avime, Rav Chisda says that Avime says, Mochen Osan L'Shvakim, no, you sell them in the marketplace. That way you can get a good price for these where there's a lot of buyers. But the Gemara says, Velo pligi, really they're not arguing. Hadim mekarev shuka, hadim merachik shuka. In one case we're talking where a marketplace is nearby, then you should take it to the marketplace. In another case we're talking about where the market is far away, so then you should try to sell it immediately. And Rashi over here says, first for the people of Nahardoi, mishum dekari luhu genai v'cherpehi lahem keshakarim It was considered bad when you would buy something being sold by Bezin. Why are they selling it? Bezin is selling it because somebody's trying to get money from the orphans. People didn't like when you purchase these things, so they stopped making the proclamations by movable objects la'alter. So one opinion is do it right away. Very close to the death of their father. We don't want this movable property to spoil, to rot. The Makarev l'shuka, but again we said if you're close to the marketplace, Yom the Shukah, on the day of the marketplace, so then already it's better to take it to the market. There'll be more buyers and you'll get a better price. And the Gemara continues, Rav Kahana have a biyodei shichro de Rav Mesharshia bar Chilkoi. So Rav Kahana had in his possession the beer of Rav Mesharshia bar Chilkoi, Yasma, who happened to be a Yasma, who was an orphan. Shahayad Rigla, so he waited until the regel to sell it. Amar, and he said, even though there might be a little spoilage, it's going to quickly bring in money when you sell it at a time where there's a lot of buyers. You're better off, even if the product itself is not in the best shape. And the Gemara continues, Ravina have a biyade chamra de Ravina Zuta Yasma barachse. Ravina, he had in his hand the wine of Ravina Zuta, who was he was a Yasam and he was the son of his sister, it was his nephew. Havela didei nami chamra, and he also had his own wine. So have a kamasikle l'sichra, and he was taking his wine to sichra in order to sell it. So also lakami de Ravashi, so he came in front of Ravashi. Amar Leini said to him, Ma'u la'amtuye bahadon, can I bring this wine of the Yasam together with my wine? In other words, it's going to be a little of a delay by the time I sell it, but that's how I'm selling my wine. Can I sell the Yasam's wine in the same fashion? Amar Lei said, Zil, you can go do that. Lo adif mididach. His is not better than yours. If that's how you treat your own wine, then certainly you can do that with his wine as well. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Hamima Enes, Hashniya V'ha'ilanis. Let's say you have a woman, she refuses marriage. We're talking about a girl who is a minor, who was married off, a Derabonon marriage by her brother, by her brother or mother. So she can get out of the marriage. She doesn't need a get. She can get out of the marriage by refusing. Or Hashniya, that means it's a Isser Derabonon, a marriage between relatives that's not an Isser Doraisa, but it's an Isser Midrabonon. And an Ailanis is a woman who's underdeveloped in terms of maturity sexually, and also that marriage is not really a marriage, it's like a Mekachtos. In all of those situations, Ein Lahen Ksuba velo Peiros velo Mezonos velo Belos, she doesn't receive the Ksuba payment, she doesn't receive, there's no din of Peiros, we'll see Rashi on that, there's no Mezonos, no sustenance, also no Belos, which literally means the worn out clothing, we'll see Rashi on that as well. And then the Mishnah says, if the Ailanis who got married, he knew all along he was marrying an Ailanis, so that's a regular marriage, yesh la ksuba, then she will get the ksuba. Almana la kohen gadol, let's say a widow marries a kohen gadol, which is prohibited, or grusha v'chalutza la kohen hedyot, a divorcee or a chalutza marries a kohen hedyot, also prohibited. Mamzeres or nesina li Yisrael, if a mamzeres or a nesina marries a Jew, a Jewish man, bas Yisrael and nesina la mamzer, let's say a Jewish girl marries a nesina or a mamzer, all of these kind of forbidden relationships, still yesh lahem ksuba, they still are going to receive a ksuba. Rashi over here says, Hashniya, Shniya la'araya, Shen midivrei sofrim, hamafurish b'yavamas perak beis. Again, these are relationships which are arayas on a derabonon level. Ein lohen ksuba, so the Mishnah said there's no ksuba. So Rashi explains the reason for each case why there's no ksuba. Mima enes mishum demeyatzma yotza. First of all, a mima enes, so she doesn't get divorced by the husband. She herself decides she's going to leave the marriage. She refuses the marriage, so then she doesn't get ksuba. Shniya kanasa derabonon hu. When it comes to in a forbidden relationship on a derabonon level, the Rabbanon made a knas that she doesn't get the ksuba. Kedamrina b'yavamas b'perkei ish mutaras mipnei shehi margiloso lenosa she'ena mafsedes klum. The reason is because she's actually encouraging that forbidden relationship because she doesn't really lose by it, b'nisuin, by getting married. She'ena nefselas b'enu valda kosher. She doesn't become disqualified through that marriage. It's only prohibited midrabanan, and her child is fine. Her child is kosher. So therefore, in order to discourage this, we don't give the ksuba because she's trying to get married in that fashion anyway, because she doesn't see any negatives in that relationship. An Ailanis mishum de mekachtosu, and an Ailanis, so there he thought he was marrying in a regular situation. It turns out she's an Ailanis. That's a mekachtos. Therefore, it's not really a marriage. It is like a sale that was a mistaken sale, a mistaken purchase. And in that situation, also she does not receive the ksuba. Velo peiros. The Mishnah also said she doesn't receive peiros. What does it mean peiros? It means din peiros. It means the law associated with peiros. V'hu perkona. What the Mishnah really means is he doesn't have to redeem her. Normally, there's a halacha. A husband has to redeem his wife if she's taken captive. That doesn't apply here. That's what it means by peiros, according to Rashi. Shetiknu chachamim tachas peiros nichse melug shuochel. The chachamim said, since the husband is allowed to have the fruits from the property she brings into the marriage, nichse mulug is property she brings into the marriage, which she gets back the property at the end of the marriage, but he consumes the fruits the entire time. So that's normally because of that. So he's supposed to redeem her in exchange for the payros. He has to redeem her. So in this situation, ein lo, so she doesn't get this redemption. She doesn't get this din payros. V'im nishbes ein chayav lifdosa. So if she's captured, he doesn't have to redeem her. The tanai ksuba kechsuba, because this is one of the conditions of the ksuba. This whole exchange of payros for perkona is part of the conditions of the ksuba, and she doesn't get the ksuba. V'kevan dein la ksuba ein la tanai ksuba. Since she doesn't have the ksuba in this case, like we said before, she doesn't have the tanai ksuba. Rashi offers a different explanation. Vis damri klomer aflo peiros im ochlon ein mishalem lo peiros nichse mulug she'achal. Let's say you have a situation. Another explanation of this is, let's say you have a situation where he eats the fruits, where the fruits are consumed, so he doesn't have to pay her the peiros of those nichse mulug that he consumed. Now, even though in this case he's not redeeming her, so maybe he shouldn't be entitled to the fruits. So maybe he should have to pay back those fruits. So some people say that's what it means in the Mishnah. He doesn't have to pay back those fruits if he already consumed them. He doesn't have to pay back the fruits. Because it's a condition of the ksuba. It's like the ksuba. There's also a knas. Let's say she brings in what's called nichse tzon barzel. Nichse tzon barzel is she brings property into the marriage. They evaluate what it was worth at the time of the marriage, and she's entitled to get that value back at the end. Even if the property goes up or down in value, she gets back the original. That's why it's tzon barzel. It's property that's like at a fixed value. So there's a knas over there also that she doesn't get that. But Torah's ksuba, she doesn't get that in these marriages over here listed in the Mishnah. She doesn't get that as part of the ksuba. So also, as another knas, she doesn't get to collect from him the fruits that he already consumed. So that's another explanation. Also the fact that she gets sustenance is a condition of the ksuba. Now when it comes to a mima'enes, what do you mean she doesn't get mizonos? She certainly gets mizonos while she's married. So what it means is, it can't be while they're married. Because the husband does have to provide mizonos when he's married to this girl who is a minor. What it means is as follows. Let's say he goes on a faraway journey, and during that time she borrows and eats food and consumes, and then she goes ahead and refuses the marriage. That's what it means. At that point in time, he doesn't need to pay back for what she borrowed. Below, so the other thing that they don't get is the worn out clothing. Rashi says that means shachke begodim shevielo beshuma. Means she brought in clothing into the marriage. That's like bringing in movable objects into the marriage, which is like nichse tzon barzel. Rashi says beshuma. They evaluate its worth, and she's supposed to get the worth back at the end. V'lav shanhu, he wears those clothing, he uses those clothing, those movable objects. Einu machzirin la bi'etziyasa. So he doesn't have to return it to her when she leaves the marriage. Almana l'kohen gadol. At the end of the Mishnah, there is ksuba by all of those cases. Why? Yesh lo ksuba. There's a ksuba by almana l'kohen gadol. Mimnei she psulo valda puzzle, because that marriage already she's not interested in. She becomes disqualified through that marriage. Her child becomes disqualified al yidei nisuin through that marriage. Lafigach eina margiloso. Therefore, she's not trying to marry him. We don't need to discourage her with a fine. Elahu margilo mashadla. He's the one that caused that marriage. He probably pursued her. Linase lo. He probably pursued her to marry him. Lafigach konsu oso liten ksuba. On the contrary, therefore we give a fine to him, and we say you have to pay the ksuba to discourage him to pursue her. That's what's going on at the end of the Mishnah. And the Gemara says, Rav Tani Ketana Yotza Beget Ein Laksuba V'chol Shekein Memanis. The way Rav learns the Mishnah, it's, let's say you have this minor, this girl who's a minor, it's not only by Memanis. He understands that, let's say she's divorced with a get. Let's say she was married, this Dirabonon marriage, this girl who's a minor married this man, and he divorced her with a get, she doesn't get Ksuba. And certainly if she refused the marriage, where it's coming from her, certainly in that situation, she's not going to get the Ksuba. That's how Rav learned. But Shmuel Tani Memanis Ein Laksuba V'yotza Beget Yesh Laksuba. Shmuel learned a little differently. He said, Memanis, she doesn't get the Ksuba. She's the one that stopped that marriage. But let's say she's divorced with a get, so then according to Shmuel, she actually would get a Ksuba because it's like a regular marriage. V'az the Shmuel L'tayme D'Yamar Shmuel follows his opinion because Shmuel says, Memanis Ein Laksuba. If she's a Memanis, she doesn't have a Ksuba. But Yotza Beget Yesh Laksuba. But if she leaves with a get, so then already she does get a Ksuba. Memanis, let's say she refuses the marriage, Lo Paslam and Achin. That's like retroactively undoing the whole marriage. That doesn't pass puzzle her from his brothers. It's like they were never married. Velo pasla min akuna. Also, she's not puzzled. She's not disqualified from marrying a Kohen because it's not like a divorce. But again, Shmuel says yotza beget pasla min achanu pasla min akuna. But if she gets divorced with a get, that again, that's like a regular marriage with a get. She's disqualified to marry his brothers. She's disqualified from marrying a Kohen like a grusha. Similarly, if this girl who's a minor refuses the marriage, she doesn't have to wait 3 months to marry someone else. And again, that's going to be different by a woman who receives a get who is a minor. Gemara says, Rav Tani Katana Hayotza begetting Laksuba Kasavra Eini Sur Katana Lkamafuta Bialma. He holds that the marriage of a Katana is nothing. It's just like a woman who is seduced, who agrees to get married. It's a mafuta, and therefore the get really, it's not like a normal marriage, and therefore she doesn't get Ksuba. And Rashi continues, Lo Paslam and Achen, again according to Shmuel, by a Mima Enes, she's not disqualified from the brothers. Shemuteris Lakrovov, she can marry his relatives. Kanusa V'chumafuta, same like any woman who's raped or seduced. Titnan no Seyadam Anusa Asaviv, Velo Paslam and Akuna, again, Mima Enes is not disqualified from kahuna. It's not like a situation of a regular divorce. Misham grusha, it's not like a divorce. She'enelu gerishin ala kiras nisumim rishonim. Again, a mima'enis is just an uprooting of the marriage in the first place. It's not like a gerishin. She's saying, I don't want that marriage that my mother married me off. If she refuses the marriage, she doesn't have to wait 3 months to marry someone else. And it's like she was never married. She's not included in all the takonas that are made by normal marriages. In normal situations, you got to wait after they leave their husband 3 months. That does not apply over here, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Kuf Aleph Amud Aleph.